Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by Thomas Kennedy. He's a writer and a political organizer. And you have been a thorn in Governor DeSantis's side. And this morning, you were kicked out of a press conference that the governor was holding for the crime of trying to ask him certain questions that, I don't know, maybe he doesn't have answers for. And the media doesn't seem to want to report on much. Let me just show what I'm talking about and the scene of you getting kicked out.
Are you press?
I am.
I'm sorry, you're not on our RTP list. Can you please step out?
I sent an email actually, and I RSVP'd.
We have a screening process.
You just need to talk
Are you guys afraid of tough questions? I just wanted to ask the governor about the $624 million tax refund for wealthy corporations, including the $10 million that Disney's gonna get from our tax dollars. You guys should ask about that. Corporations are gonna get a $624 million corporate tax refund from this legislature, and Disney is gonna get $10 million. Christina, you want to comment? Why are you guys assaulting a person just trying to ask a question? Cowards. Cowards are afraid of tough questions.
Another activist / journalist was kicked out too. Let me show that.
Do you suspect me of committing a crime? No, not invite. I sent an RSVP. I'm a member of the press. I'm an editor of a national publication called Democrats.com.
Did you RSVP reply?
I did RSVP.
Okay, give me a phone.
Okay, thank you very much. I would love to ask Governor DeSantis
$624
about
million
rental
corporate
inflation.
tax refund,
Rental
and you're
inflation
giving
is
$10
4
million
times the
to
rate
Disney World.
of national
Hypocrites,
inflation. What's he gonna do
performative
about it?
hypocrites, and you're afraid of tough questions. The media, you should ask them about that.
Can I have your name and badge number?
Interesting. In the free state of Florida, you're not free to ask questions about corporate corruption. Tell us, Thomas, what is going on there? Because I was just down there on the ground a couple of weeks ago covering the Don't Say Gay bill, which is obviously a very, very harmful distraction, the Stop Woke Act. And the media seems to be focused on these culture war issues, but I don't see a ton of reporters asking the questions you were kicked out for.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it, the nail on the head. The Florida Republican legislature, which has, control of both chambers, and obviously the governorship is under Ron DeSantis. They push, and I hate the term culture war issues because, abortion is a healthcare issue. The Don't Say Gay bill has these things actually have implications, right? But they are distractions. They're creating problems that don't exist. And they are, shifting attention from what has always been true, not just in Florida, but across the country. But I think in Florida is, specifically, blatant, that there's a pro-corporate agenda within our politics. In 2019, Ron DeSantis signed into law legislation that basically authorized a series of corporate tax refunds to a secret list of the top 1% wealthiest corporations in the state. The first one of those tax refunds was given out in early 2020 during the outset of COVID, when Florida's economy crashed, and that was a $543 million corporate tax refund. And now we have already started giving this new set of refunds out. We're giving a $624 million tax refund, again, to the top 1% corporations in the state. And, I bring up Disney because the governor, and Republicans actually now across the country have been waging this sort of performative war against Disney's late opposition to the Don't Say Gay bill. But in reality, they've legislated, for Disney for the past decades. They have given countless incentives for the company. And within that $624 million tax refund that's going out right now, it is estimated that because of Disney's size as a Florida corporation and their stakeholder status, they are going to get a $10 million share of that pool of money. And again, this is taxpayer dollars that could be going for things that Floridians actually need like addressing our affordable housing crisis, right? Florida is, spiraling housing costs, spiraling rent costs, property insurance is through the roof, some of the most expensive housing markets in the country. And what was allocated for affordable housing by the legislature this year is half of that $624 million corporate tax refund that I am talking about. So it's just shameful, it's embarrassing, it's corrupt. And, as a Floridian, I feel confident in saying that a lot of us want our refund from these corporations back. We want that money back, and we want it spent on things that are actually going to help working families in the state.
And by the way, I mean, Florida was one of basically the ground zeros, maybe the worst, of the 2008 financial crash. Foreclosures were really bad in Florida. Housing market crash really destroyed Florida. And despite the mainstream narrative, there's a lot of people that still have not come back from that. And then you add COVID on. I know, just being down there reporting the last few weeks, your property insurance is through the roof. Rent is going up 30 to 40%. Places like Tampa, Orlando are now some of the priciest. Rent is going up the fastest in those areas along I-4. And this governor essentially seems to be responding to all these things by fluffing the pillows of his donors, basically stealing money from the middle and working class and funneling it to the top, I would assume, based on his 2024 presidential ambitions. But I mean, this should be a scandal there. But as far as I could see when I was down there, there's not much attention other than activists like you.
Yeah, again, you hit the nail on the head. It's Robin Hood in reverse, right? They are stealing from the poor to give it to the rich, and really their rich friends, right? They're donors. And it's just crazy. Like in the city of Miami, most unaffordable housing market in the country, we have local leaders who are talking about Bitcoin, right? And like pushing Bitcoin and cryptocurrency rather than, addressing the fact that people are getting displaced from their homes. You got the governor, banning abortion, talking about the Don't Say Gay bill, all this crap meant to distract. And you're correct. I think the media needs to do a better job at addressing this corporate agenda. The fact that, like you said, they are literally taking our tax dollars that should be going to, funding public education, funding, like our healthcare system, funding affordable housing, and they're not talking about that, right? It's very, very frustrating. I mean, we live in a state that, again, is one of 12 states that refuses to expand Medicaid. It would give 800,000 low-income Floridians, access to healthcare. And, instead we're going down the rabbit hole of culture wars, while, this administration, again, gives literally like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars subsidizing corporations that are making record profits. And I don't want to go down, into the weeds, but that are also like price gouging and taking advantage of like this inflation to raise prices on consumers even further. I mean, it's dystopian, man.
Right. Basic question, because Florida was a swing state for a long time. Frankly, Al Gore won Florida. The Supreme Court stole it. And, you have all this economic Gilded Age stuff going on there. And you would think if you had a strong politically left populist opposition party, they would wipe the floor with corrupt people like Ron DeSantis. I mean, I was down there. I understand the excuse could be used, well, Democrats don't have the power in Florida. The legislature is Republican, but I don't really see much action from Democrats on housing, on property insurance, on corruption. They're taking a lot of money from Disney too. Isn't this kind of the national problem on the local level when you don't have a real opposition party? People like DeSantis, who distract their base with this culture war stuff, they're viewed as fighting, even though they're fighting for terrible things. And these people that are being hoodwinked into either supporting the Republicans or being deflated to not vote because the Democrats aren't offering a real alternative.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll start out by, full disclosure, I'm a Democratic National Committee member. I was elected on a reform line in 2020. I was a former Bernie staffer. I'm part of the progressive wing of the party. But I agree, right? Sometimes, I feel like we're boxing with one hand tied behind our backs. There are good Democrats in this state that are trying to fight the fight. You've interviewed one of them recently, Representative Anna Skimani, for example, from Orlando, who's very progressive, very interested on this issue of corporate giveaways. She actually held a press conference about it yesterday with Congressman Charlie Crist and Representative Angie Nixon and some other folks that are want to highlight this corporate corruption embedded within our government. But I agree, man. We have to get better as a party in terms of standing up for working people, standing up for working families, driving a populist message. Around calling out, these corporate subsidies, these corporate giveaways. And, until we do that, we're not going to be able to connect with families, working families across the state, and I think a lot of it, frankly, just being earnest here, I think a lot of it comes from the party's fear of losing like those corporate donors and falling behind the money race that they've, that historically has been lost in Florida, compared to what these corporations give to Republicans. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out a different formula because, we've been losing statewide races for almost 25 years now, right? You got to connect differently to the voters here. And you can't be afraid to call out corporate corruption just because you're afraid of making these corporations mad and not have them donate to you. Bernie and other progressive politicians across the country have proven that, you can create a small dollar program if you connect to the material needs, and an interest of, the electorate. And here in Florida, I think, the person that got closest to it was Andrew Gillum, right? Who ran a pretty progressive, campaign as a Black man, in the state. And, he lost by 30,000 votes, less than half of a percentage point. And he was talking about some real stuff. But, since then, I feel like we have backtracked, unfortunately. But there is a contingent of us that are, trying to, highlight these issues and really put a spotlight on the just blatant corporate corruption that's happening in the state and how, working families are getting screwed over left and right.
And lastly, could you kind of take people inside? Because DeSantis likes to put out this message of like, anti-censorship and, Democrats are pro-censorship, which big tech and many Democrats are pro-censorship. But this isn't the first time they've kicked out protesters, activists from press conferences or other events with the governor. So they want to be anti-censorship and all these things, but they want to muzzle anyone asking about their corruption. Doesn't really seem that the whole free state of Florida thing applies if he's being challenged.
Sure. So I'll address that, but let's backtrack to like the whole big tech thing, right? Because last year in Florida, there was actually an anti-big tech, anti-social media censorship bill that was passed by the legislature. And it addressed this issue of, like right-wing candidates being the platform, and it was provoked by Donald Trump's removal from Twitter, right? But wherever you land on that, right, whether you agree with it or not, there's emails that have been reported by Jason Garcia, who's a great reporter here in Florida. He's on Substack, used to be with the Orlando Sentinel. He got emails from DeSantis's, now chief of staff and, a lot of his legislative aides that were in contact with Disney lobbyists. And they worked these emails are available. They're real. It's not a conspiracy. They worked with the DeSantis administration and Disney lobbyists to carve out Disney from this anti-social media a bill, because Disney was afraid that their Disney Plus platform was going to be affected, since people can sign up and leave reviews and comments and things like that. So Disney was completely carved out. the carve out was basically written so that if a company owned a theme park in Florida, they were exempt from the bill, right? Oh, we wonder who that could be, right? That would have the muscle to get that passed, by the governor. So it's just all performative crap. If you have enough money, to exercise muscle, you can get whatever you want in the state. And back to your question, right, which is about censorship of journalists. So I was thrown out today. I have been, a target of this administration. But a couple of months ago, a man named Ben Frazier from Jacksonville, he is a member of the National Association of Black Journalists, and he's been, a member of the media for quite some time. He tried to attend a Ron DeSantis's press conference, again, in the city of Jacksonville. He was just standing around, like a journalist would, waiting for the governor to come out. And he was approached by police, asked to leave for no reason. He had not been disruptive in any way, shape, or form. And he refused to leave because he said, I am a journalist. I'm, again, member of the National Association of Black Journalists. And he was actually put in handcuffs, escorted out, and arrested and charged. I believe the charges have been dropped, but there was, a whole legal proceeding that had to happen. So again, in the free state of Florida, if you are a critic of the governor and you decide to attend his publicly funded press conference, these are not events that are put together by his campaign. They're put together by the governor's office that is funded through our tax dollars. And they're supposed to be press events open to the media. If you go there and you're oppositional in any way, shape, or form, you will not be invited back. And if you try to go again, you're very likely to either be physically thrown out or maybe even arrested.
Wow. Doesn't look good for the future of America if, let's say, DeSantis, Trump doesn't run, or DeSantis somehow wins the nomination. If Trump runs, we already saw this happen during Trump. Frankly, Democrats are going after Julian Assange and others. But Ron DeSantis, if he ever sniffed the White House, not good for a free press. Thank you very much for taking the time. Sorry you got kicked out, but thanks for fighting the fight, and we'll stay in touch.
No, thanks so much. And thank you for everything you do and spotlighting all the issues that need to be spotlit. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern time.